This is a video on Sri Aurobindo's Life Divine and Synthesis of Yoga, the Master of Works, Chapter 11 of the Synthesis of Yoga. Good morrow. This is Chris speaking. Wake up with another video about Sri Aurobindo's Life Divine and Synthesis of Yoga. For the next chapter 15 of the Life Divine, the Supreme Truth Consciousness, it is in my view only understandable by before reading chapter 11 of the Synthesis of Yoga, the Master of the Work. And a bit of chapter 12 and 13 also, the Divine Work and the Supermind and the Yoga of Works, which is Karma Yoga, which I have mentioned in a previous video, the Ego video. Also, I'm very impressed, by the way, by the number of people who are actually interested in the Sri Aurobindo series. In spite of this series, or probably even because of it, the channel has reached 400 subscribers yesterday. Thank you very much. And maybe for this channel's birthday on the 1st of May, there will be 500 subscribers. It is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to do these videos. Thank you again for sticking with me. Some of this channel's Facebook group members are even now doing an intuition training. So, to undertake this journey means a lot of courage, a lot of patience, and will to not give up, and a lot of faith and surrender to give in and letting go of the steering wheel. The surrender can only come through Bhakti Yoga, Tantra, or Karma Yoga. That's how, at least how the ancient Indians have termed these paths to surrender. If you have the synthesis at home, read the first 5 pages of the 11th chapter, The Master of the Work, especially page 3 to 5. It starts with the Master of our works respects our nature even when he is transforming it. It would be possible to make a whole video about this one sentence only. Who is this Master of Works? Works means karma or karma yoga. To be active in this world. And to be active in this world without seeking approval, without seeking recognition or reward. Just do your level best and leave the results up to the universe. That's it. You're not responsible for the outcome. So you will neither be punished nor rewarded by the outcomes of your actions. The accumulation of karma only comes into existence by misinterpreting yourself as a god or a goddess. Divine power flows through you, from the divine into you and out of you again. You are not the origin of creative power in the universe. You're a medium, a channel, a focus of it. And while you are this channel and focus, the universe is transforming itself, and with it, yourself. The universe and you get transformed at the same time. And the universe knows your limitations because they were built in on purpose, but not without reason. They're there because they were necessary to reach a higher good, a higher goal. And thus our nature is respected by it. It does not work against our nature, but with it. Sri Aurobindo writes, he, the Master of our works, always works through the nature and not by any arbitrary caprice. When he says he, don't be offended if you're a woman. Just 100 years ago there was no he, she. So the Master of our works always works through the nature, not by any arbitrary caprice. It may seem to us arbitrarily or by chance, or even like a caprice, or even like a torture. But it is not. It is just a detour, a necessary detour to arrive at a yet higher vantage point. because our imperfect nature contains the materials to our perfection. But who is this ominous master of works? He or she or it is inside of us, of every single one of us. It is not an outside force. It is our inner guru, our inner master, our inner connection to the divine absolute, who is always guiding us, even if we are not aware of it, even if we are full of fear. Sri Aurobindo writes, the master of our works is neither a blunderer, nor an indifferent witness, nor a dallier with the luxury of unnecessary evils. He is wiser than our reason and wiser than our virtue. The master of our work and our yoga knows the thing to be done, and we must allow him to do it in us by his own means and in his own manner. So here we have the surrender part again. This is the most difficult part for us because we've accumulated so much proof in our lives up till now that surrender is either not possible or will lead us to pain and suffering. We think we have proof that surrender will make us suffer because we are multi-traumatized and even re-traumatized almost every single day. Most of us only get by because our guardian programs are running the show by default. This is why it is often said that we are asleep. Our inner light is kind of asleep because it is surrounded by guardian programs, suffocating the flame like glass domes would suffocate a candle. These guardian programs have been erected or programmed as a defense mechanism every time something terrible happened to us suddenly, and we could not deal with it in that moment. Every time we had the impression that the world is a hostile and dangerous place which wants us dead. Every time one of those guardians programs has been created by us, by ourselves, as a coping mechanism for too much stress, for an unbearable situation. Thus, after a while, it is easier to drift off into self-forgetfulness, a kind of peaceful trance, or to try to starve or even kill the ego by extreme renunciation. None of this will lead to inner freedom, though. Only the divine wisdom and power can do this for us, in us, if we let it, in spite of our negative experience and panic. With constant courage and patience, we assent to its workings in us. It is always there in us, and unfortunately the guardian programs who shield us every day and every physically awake moment have gotten in its way. We are the perfect instrument of divine action, without knowing it. But we are not the doers. Sorry, this is hard to take. We have been raised and educated in a manner which leads us to believe that we are the doer, that we have to prove our value by our actions, that we can only be accepted, praised, and rewarded because of our actions, our so-called success. And thus it becomes like a drug. We crave acceptance, we crave praise, we crave recognition and acknowledgement from the outside, from others, because we feel empty and lonely inside. But we are not empty and lonely inside. There is this divine flame burning and working in us, through us all the time. We just have forgotten to listen to it. And we have been taught by others who are afraid and lonely and unhappy and asleep not to listen to it, but instead work our asses off, excuse my French, to get our next fix of outside validation. We are all drug addicts, really, and many of us actually drown our sorrows in other drugs as well. How to get out of this vicious circle or vicious cycle? Sri Aurobindo actually describes this in the chapter 15 of the Life Divine, but only fleetingly, so it is necessary to read the 11th chapter of the Synthesis to complete it, to complement it. But how to get out of it? Osho always asked his disciples, half mockingly, half challenging, because there is no way out. There's only way in. Sri Aurobindo describes this way in or this way out in 3 steps. The first step is to consecrate and sacrifice all our works, all our efforts and actions to the divine. Nothing is our action and our success anymore, but also nothing is our failure anymore. Indeed, there is no such thing as success or failure, because this concept presupposes an individual who does something which does not exist. The divine absolute is the only doer here. Thus there is also no victim or no perpetrator. I repeat, the first step is to consecrate and sacrifice all our works, all our efforts and actions to the divine. That means no victim game anymore, no blame game, no Pavlov's dog reward and punishment game. All fake. This is all what we tell ourselves and our children because we are dissociated, disfranchised and alienated from ourselves. We are more or less all schizophrenics until we give up our actions to the divine universe, until we sacrifice everything, meaning whenever I do something, I say something like, or think something like, this is for you, universe. Thank you. The second step is to renounce all outcomes as well, or as Sri Aurobindo calls it, to renounce attachment to the fruit of our works. You are not doing it, so I claim authorship. The only desirable fruit is to feel the divine presence in yourself. And then nothing is lost, but everything is added. So to the this is for you universe, we can now add, I have done my best through you, now it is up to you. You are not responsible for the outcome. You are just responsible to do your best. And your best is your best, not something better. You are good enough. As long as you don't consciously screw it up on purpose, as long as you don't do your worst on purpose, then it is your best. Your best is not some theoretical thing. It is what is now possible for you. That's your best. You don't have to improve or learn anything to do your best. Least of all a university degree or some such. Thus your ego desire will be transformed into an instrument of divine existence, consciousness, bliss and force. This is then, by the way, where the bliss comes in. You cannot feel this famous bliss if you focus on your pain all the time and on your guilt. And if you play the blame game. You are afraid to let yourself fall. Do you know the falling trust exercise in group dynamics? It goes like that. You stand on the edge of a table and behind you 6 or so people are waiting for you to fall backwards and to catch you. So you're standing with your back towards them and you have to let go and tip backwards and trust that they will catch you. This is a truly frightening exercise, and it is very similar to what you can do in karma yoga in general. Only this is no exercise. This is your life. This is your new life motto. Let go and let the universe run the show. Sit back and relax in the back of the car. Leave the steering wheel to the divine. And then the third step is the hardest, the last, but also the most important, because it completes and finishes the first two steps. To give up that you are a separate entity, that you are not even a worker or a medium, you are a drop swimming in the ocean. You are the ocean. It is a ridiculous idea of a drop in the ocean to think of itself as a single drop swimming around in the ocean, separate from the rest of the ocean. It's all one ocean. It doesn't make sense to count the amount of ocean in drops. No, it's one thing. It's a totally arbitrary size to say it's an ounce or a drop or a milliliter. It doesn't make sense. You are part of the whole thing. But you cannot jump to step 3. That is a common mistake on the spiritual path. It's not about killing the ego, it is about surrendering step by step until it is not necessary anymore. Because mistrust will and must be first replaced by trust. By the experience that the unbearable is in fact bearable after all, and by the experience of being a divine vessel. That you are not the doer but the instrument of divine action, and thus to see and recognize by experience, not by thought, by experience, that the only motive force is the will of the divine Shakti, not you or anyone else, only Shakti. And then to experience the freedom that comes with it, which of course does not resolve you of all responsibility. You're still responsible for yourself to some degree, because you're not an unconscious instrument like a crowbar. But you're also not something other than the divine Shakti, you're a part of it. And your job is to do your best and let go of the rest. Wow, that even rhymes. Do your best and let go of the rest. But not doing your best to gain something in return. Just do it for the best of all creation. Not for yourself, not for your parents, not for your children, not for your partner, but impersonally for everyone and everything. And this will eradicate the origin of desire, and the origin of pain, and the origin of fear, and the origin of suffering, and help you dissolve your traumata and your guardian defense. The order of these 3 steps is also important. I repeat, you cannot jump ahead to step 3. This is called spiritual bypass and does not work. You cannot desire for the desire to stop. It can only stop by an experience that you are indeed a vessel, by an experience that balances out your previous experiencing of separateness. But to what purpose, you will ask now? Why should I do that? First of all, it will make possible the end of suffering and the beginning of peace, liberation as the Buddhists call it. That should be reason enough. But secondly, it is also your purpose as a human being, whether you like it or not. And this is not some kind of salvation or escape to paradise or from the wheel of rebirth. Just leave these things up to the divine. It's not up to you. This is, by the way, one of the main topics of the Bhagavad Gita. Just do it. Don't question the divine plan. Why? Because this is how the universe works. We are part of a creative process of infinite dimensions and proportions. And we can play our part in it, or we can resist it. Either way, this will be part of the progress and part of the process, just with more or less pain. It is easier and less painful to assume that the divine nature works in dynamic perfection and harmony than to play God or Goddess yourself and try to fix the universe single-handedly. The highest version of the aim and purpose of the universe, which we can grasp as human beings, is the evolution of consciousness. That is how the whole process appears to us. And this is what is described in the Life Divine, to which we will return in the next video on the supermind. The important thing to remember here is that the supermind, as well as the so-called master of works, is not something outside of us, but inside. And therefore, the probability of finding it is 100%. It's already there. There is nothing to seek nor to find. Only to remember, to reconnect, to uncover, to set free. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to all my Patreons. You can join me on Patreon or Facebook. Thank you for liking and subscribing and sharing the videos, and see you soon.